Everybody. Today is January 10th, 2024, and this is my live coaching. I am looking forward to answering any questions those that come into this space have. Today was an amazing conversation with Jack Gillian. I got to do a space with him, grabbing his book off the bookshelf right now. His book is called No Worries, How to Live a Stress-Free Financial Life. And let me tell you, it is such an excellent book. Look at how small it is. It's like 270 pages. Easy read. You'll be done with it in a snap. But it gives you such an incredible perspective shift. It did for me. I was so impressed with it. And I'm so excited to advocate everybody read it. We talked at length. We had a great space. I did a 2-part interview with him today. The first part, good afternoon, Tina. I'm so glad you're here. It was just an amazing conversation. We did a 40 minutes on the podcast, and then, with Zoom. And then I did a Twitter space with him for probably 45 minutes or so. So you guys can at least listen to the Twitter space, X space, and then, give us about a week or so, and we'll have the, full sequence released so you can see the video conversation with him and me as well. But the heart of the matter, the heart of that talk that you may know or may not know, hi PTO, glad you're here, is that he talked about how so much of the financial, what do you want to call it? The marketing of the finance world, right? The marketing of the different gurus, not trading gurus. He's talking about those who are, selling to anybody about their relationship to their money. He said one of the things that he really sees over and over again is that what they do is they are selling extreme solutions. And what he said is that extreme solutions are easy to sell. People buy that. So glad you were there, Shane. I was hoping you were going to ask a question, but you didn't. So anyway, nobody asked questions. I was so surprised. I thought there would be so many questions for this man. But I'm so glad you were there, Shane. Everybody that was there. Jasmine was there. Tom was there. A bunch of our regulars were there, guys. So anyway, think about that, guys. Yes, think about it for trading, but just think in general how extreme solutions are easy to sell because they are simplistic. But in the end, what he's trying to say is they are both two sides of the same coin. That's okay, Eric. That's okay. You'll get to listen to the space and see the podcast when it gets dropped. So I have to tell you guys, this book is absolutely an incredible perspective. And the reason I'm so happy with it is because it basically is doing something that you guys won't be surprised I'm happy about. And that is it lets everybody off the meat hook. Most people have themselves on. He said this concept of austerity and how we're all feeling guilty all the time for any consumption, for any materialism, for any sort of spending is insane. He's like, that is what money is for. He's not talking about being irresponsible, but what he's trying to say is this focus on our being like, this is his phrase, CF. You know what CF stands for? You threw me off there, Steve G. That's right. I remember that Casey and the Sunshine Band. But I know that's what you're referencing, Casey and the Sunshine Live Chat. I like that, Steve. I think we should rename this whole thing to Casey and the Sunshine Live Chat. It's a great name, Steve. Thank you. That's so funny. BTO, you can catch You'll see the podcast drop in about a week. And in the meantime, you can listen to the X Space Live. It's up on my Twitter handle. I don't know. I think indefinitely now. I don't know if Elon is keeping it around. It used to be 30 days, the spaces, but I think it's much, much longer now. But at the end of the day, the new podcast with Jared will drop in about a week or so. So basically, he talks about these two extremes, and that a lot these are the two extremes. The two extremes are CFs, cheap fucks, excuse my French, and high rollers. And he said about those two, what often happens is that happens because the family you're born to, your caretakers, their relationship to money basically facilitates for you a kind of resistance to that way. So he talked about his parents, they didn't pay for his college education. And back when he was going to go to college, it would have been an extra $4,000. So he had to go into the Marine Corps. And, he just talked about the cost that was to him. It wasn't the greatest of experiences for him. And he just basically said, I probably resented my parents all these years because they wouldn't foot the bill for college because they would see Fs, right? Cheap blanks. And so what he's saying is that if any of us self-identify as a CF or a high roller, he said both of those types, they're two sides of the same coin, both of those types are ruled by money. And what his advocacy is, you don't want to be ruled by money. You want to have a stress-free life. And the way you have a stress-free life is to not have to be obsessed with money. And he talked about CFs. He is a recovering CF because his parents were CFs. He was a CF. Hey, Jasmine, so glad you're here. Hey, I'm so glad you're here too. Gayazi, is that how I pronounce your name? I think so too. Jasmine says the spaces was fire. I agree, Jasmine. I thought it was amazing. Yo, Gayazi. I'm glad you're here too. So think about that. I'm curious if, you guys don't have a formal definition, but you got the gist of the, hey, Art Bull, I'm so glad you're here. Yes, you're going to love the replay. It's amazing. CF is hard to deal with. They have the money hoarding mindset, save it all and be buried with it. Absolutely. But also, this is what he is saying, that CFs is actually being completely personal finance literature today. Dave Ramsey's, a whole bunch of other people, Susie Orman. There's a number of books that I've read that have this emphasis of trying to turn all of us into CFs and making us feel guilty if we spend money, if we consume, if we have, we buy something that we really wanted clothing wise, or, a product, materialistic, like we're told we're materialistic if we spend any money. And he talked about the time he was making $400,000 a year, but he was still living like a CF. And he said, there's so many people. He talked even about multimillionaires, and I have met them, guys, that are CFs. They are very cheap when they go to tip. They don't give to charity. They haggle over bills when splitting a check at a restaurant. I get pushback from my rates, which are high, and they say, oh, your rates are so high, and I'm like, yep, because I deliver at a high level. It's not that they can't afford it, it's that they don't want to invest in it. That likely often is an indication of a mindset of a scarcity mindset. And what the financial literature today does is advocate that we turn into CFs. And if we are not a CF, we are somehow not in a good place, that something is wrong with us. And that's what is such an incredible eye opener. But at the same time, and I'm going to talk to all of you traders here, the high rollers is an issue as well. That is just the opposite extreme. And because you guys are all traders, I want you to seriously consider whether you yourself are a high roller. All of these things are, again, indicators for you to get to know yourself. For you guys to actually succeed at trading, you have to understand your vehicle. You have to look under the hood. You have to find out what is your relationship to money like, because all of that is going to influence and impact how you trade. Regardless of trading, you can still be one of these two extremes, or start moving in the direction of moderation. He calls it the middle way. I think money, I get what you're saying, Kayasi, that money is nothing more than a tool, but I do believe it is a little bit more than a tool. I do believe it facilitates, and that's part of what Jared is speaking to in his book, is that being able to have even cash is low stress. When we have cash available to us, he even talks about that, how often people don't have liquid cash. And that, he said, alone is something that can bring us a great deal of mental peace, and how infrequently we have it because we feel guilty not getting interest for it, not making sure it's working for us, quote unquote. So anyway, it was just absolutely a fascinating book, a fascinating conversation. And I really hope you guys will consider it. Eric says guilt trip comes from telling you do not deserve anything nice. Yep, but I think part, Eric, of what he's saying in this book goes even beyond that. What a CF mindset is going to say to us is that we're being financially irresponsible. So it's one thing to not think you're worthy, but it's another thing to think something is irresponsible about you spending money on yourself. He talks about this particular time because of his life growing up with parents who were CFs. He was a CF, and he said that he was at this point for many years making $400,000 a year, and he saw a pair of boots he really wanted. They were $1,000. He was in a position to buy them. He didn't have debt at the time. He was paying off this mortgage. Like, he was in a very good position. And yet, he said he had to walk around the store a number of times before he felt comfortable and able to reconcile with himself that he could afford it and that he loved them enough that it was worth getting. And he said it really was like this moment where I had to see, oh my gosh, like, what is the point of me having made this money if I'm not going to spend it on something that's going to make me really happy? And he said, he loved those boots and he had them for many years, but it was the first step in the direction of really seeing that spending his money in a moderate way is an appropriate response for him. And this is something he feels very few of us today are being taught or advocated. Now, of course, he also spoke to the high roller mindset and how that is dangerous just in another direction. But the heart of the matter is, he said, both of these are ruled by money. And that was part of what I was trying to say in that conversation, which Jasmine picked up on. When you are ruled by money, you are not free. You are ruled. And that is a problem. Ultimately, I want none of you to be ruled by money. And that's part of what he's trying to say. He is hoping to advocate and teach people that they ultimately want to be in charge. And he said this is not about being financially successful. This is about being financially happy. He said, if you aren't financially happy, you want to get, I'm saying this, very curious, how come? And that is an indicator. If you're not financially happy, if you're not feeling stress-free over your money, something is off. And you want to get very curious about that, and you want to do something about it. So I do think these two extremes of being very much in scarcity or very much not seeing the value of money are two sides of the same coin. And I think both of them, we all have to take a look at where that shows up in ourselves and where could our relationship to money potentially get more healed, because all of us are coming. And one of the things T. Harv Eker does in his book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, is he asks us all to try to go back to the first memory we have, to the first incident where we got the memo that money was a thing. There was an incident. He said there was a lesson. It was either we were getting allowance or not getting allowance. I had my bike stolen. CFs operate from scarcity. Exactly. Cheap fucks. That's what it stands for, Jasmine. So they operate from scarcity, and not just scarcity. They also operate from a place of they have to scrimp and save. They drive very, it operates from excess, and not just excess, but not like valuing what the effort is even with the money. So it's like two very dramatically different perspectives about money. A CF will say, I'm not making a profit now, so I'm going to pull all my money out of the market and I'm going to just hold it in gold. He would say that was a CF person if there was great volatility. All right, what else did I want to say? He also talked at length about the big expenditures that we spend so much time, saying, well, I'll make my own coffee. He said the things we spend our money on that are small kinds, like coffee, like lunches, he's like, that is not the place we should be putting our focus. We have to put our focus on the big things. He talks about the house, the car, and the student loans. Those are the things that we have to pay much more attention to, that we have a tendency to not pay attention to. And he said that is one of the biggest challenges. He also said that this concept of principles instead of rules, he said rules are really hard to live by for the rest of your life, and especially austerity is really hard to live by for the rest of your life. So he said, get principles, and then there's some flexibility, as opposed to that sense of, absolutes. He said absolutes never work. I agree with him 100%. All right, so Eric says, lose it all, never had it growing up, get it and want to hang on to money too. Yeah, well, that is possibly a CF mindset, Eric. And I would say, again, just like look perhaps at his perspective on all the qualities. He does list all the qualities in the book of a CF. And, I have to tell you, on both sides, I could identify with qualities on the CF side and on the high roller side. But I had an unusual childhood with money because I was constantly shifting back and forth between my mom. No doubt Dave Ramsey would disagree. I've never been a fan of Dave Ramsey, I have to tell you guys. Never really, him or Susie Orman, to tell you the truth. Both of them really ticked me off all the time. And he said too, he's like, just the idea of not living with a credit card. He's like, you can't get a hotel room. You can't get, Shane was there, Jasmine. Shane, I think you were there for some of today's talk. But he said, it's just the concept of a credit card, like Ramsey telling people to get rid of the credit cards. Like, yeah, okay, there are people who maybe are really in a bad way, but still, like, it's not going to work long term. You can't function without a credit card in this world. And if you have addictive tendencies, that's an issue. That, again, the addiction is never the issue, guys. It's what the addiction is numbing you from. I say that all the time. So anyway, I know he has a list in here of the qualities of a CF and the qualities of a high roller, but I'm not seeing it jump off the page. I'm just quickly. Okay, here's lists. I'll read that. Yes, Jasmine, I like that too. That he said having separate bank accounts in marriages, but he said too that what's really important is that you marry somebody with the same values. He said, because the CF, without a lot of work on themselves, is really going to turn into a high roller, and a high roller is not going to turn into a CF. They might come back into the middle. They might start to get more healthy. But we did go into the separate bank account topic, guys. I'm glad you asked about that. So over the years, he said he has met CFs who get the cheapest thing on the menu wherever they go, harass contractors and vendors for discounts and free stuff. That has happened to me, guys, with people who are definitely in a position to afford me. But they are aghast over my price point. Tip $1 on a $50 check. Buy things on credit cards, get refunds on debit cards so they can keep the points. Refuse to send their kids to private school even when they have the means to do it. Keep inordinate amounts of money in a checking or savings account for safety. Return the kids' birthday presents for cash. Stay in the cheapest hotels possible when traveling on vacation. Have alligator arms and never be the one who picks up the bill. Eat 69 cents of pork and beans for lunch. Buys generic brands of everything at the grocery store. Has never bought a new car in their life. Have millions in savings and choose to live in a lower middle class neighborhood. Crash on people's couches instead of paying for a hotel. Make their kids pay for their own college education when they have plenty of money available. Never donate to a charity. Buy short-term investment grade corporate bonds and nothing else. Now, he said, if there's a good chance that you're reading this list and you identified it with it, you're like, yeah, that's the answer. Whoever this guy is, he's doing it right. And he said, let me assure you that guy is not doing it right. I will explain why. Alligator arms. Yeah. When your arms are so small, you're like, oh, I can't reach the bill. Isn't that funny? I love that. I never heard that term either, guys. Alligator arms. It's so funny. Cheapest hotel, Shane. So it sounds like you're finding the cheap hotels when you travel. Weren't you stay in a Motel 6 in New York City, Shane? I'm just teasing you. So hope if you guys identify with any of that, it means you are a CF and you're going to need to do some healing work around your relationship to money, guys. Because honestly, the key here is that you want to go the middle way. You have it, again, he's talking about moderate amount of spending. But if you never spend, then you're holding too tight. And that has you thinking too much and obsessing over every penny you spend. And it is about balance, guys. All right. Who is ready for the high roller list? Are you guys ready for it? All right, these are people on the opposite side of the spectrum. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Go to a restaurant and order 3 times as much food as everyone needs. A closet full of clothing that they never wear. They come across an unexpected windfall and immediately buy an expensive car, and they finance it. Multiple 6 figures in credit card debt, negative equity on their house after multiple cash out refinancings. Income barely covers the debt service. 6 different gym memberships, 12 different streaming services, dozens of subscriptions. Generous to a fault, donating thousands to charity, leaving nothing for the family. Obsessed with image, must have the best car, the best clothes, the best house. Everything has to be the best. If you think back, there was somebody kind of famous in the world who always talks about the best. He had kind of orange hair, but he was always talking about the best, the best, the best, the best. That is a high roller. Has had liquidity problems and borrowed from friends or family, or tried to borrow a lot from a bank. Always teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and probably has gone bankrupt. No margin of safety. Cash doesn't stay in the bank account for long before it is spent. No savings, no retirement accounts whatsoever. And then this is pretty funny at the end. Are you ready for this? I think there should be an asterisk on this one. Buys what is it? Dogecoin and GameStop, which cracked me up. And if there's a good chance that you read through this list and you identified with this as well, then you have an abundance mentality. There is no problem with spending money because you will always make more. You are an optimist. You always believe you have the ability to make money. So you are generous with friends, family, and charities. You like to show off. You like to show off how rich you are. And it is important that you are seen buying 5 times more than you need of anything. Even a quick trip to the grocery store is a $500 affair. Yeah, isn't that funny about the meme stocks and the coins? I thought that was funny too. So anyway, again, exactly right. Healthy balance is the key. All right, so Eric says, guy that won $2 billion in a lotto in Cali bought a $47 million Bel Air mansion and another property totaling $76 million. What the hell is wrong with people? People need to have their relationship to money really worked on. And that's what I really feel this book is going to do. And part of what he said at the end of the interview that was fascinating was he said, he has a lot of people that have been on his newsletter and part of his inner circle that are millionaires, multimillionaires. And he said most of them are not going to read this book because they think they already have it all figured out. They think they know what they need to do. And he said because of that mindset, they're not open to seeing the places where they get in their own way. They're not seeing the places where the cost is around their relationship to money not being healthy is actually hurting them. So I would say, don't be that person. Be open to this concept of a middle way. I mean, it sounds a lot like Buddhism to me, to be honest. Like it's truly what Buddhism talks about, right? He talks about like, accumulate and then spend. Like that's part of what it's about. And he talks too about how do we want to read? This was a funny quote. He said, do we want to eat ramen noodles in our younger years? Or do we want to eat Alpo dog food in our older years? Like he said, first we have to accumulate, then we spend. And he said, as we get older, we should be spending more. He's like, you don't want to die with money in the bank. That's somebody who hasn't lived in a healthy way. All right. Well, they could always listen, Eric, to what's not funny. It was scary. I thought that was scary, Jasmine. I think the NFL players could all listen to his book if they needed to, Eric. And Giaz, he says, lottery winners almost always go broke because it's not about the money. It's about knowing how to manage it. And a lot of people don't. Not only do people not know how to manage it, think about who manages their money. Those often are financial advisors who are not motivated by what's in your best interest, guys. This is something I took on in my book, Transforming Wall Street, right back here. Eric Greshner is one of the financial advisors that I feature. And the reason I feature Eric, I'm just going to grab a copy of it, is because Eric is actually one of the very few financial advisors who has taken an oath to only recommend to his clients. And if anybody here needs a financial advisor, I would recommend you go to Eric in heartbeat. He has just become such an incredible friend to me over the years, but I first met him to feature him in my book, but he is a very specific financial advisor where he is committed because of his authors, the accreditation that he has, that he will never he will always advocate what's in the financial best interest of his client. And part of the challenge is in the United States, this is not the case in Europe, guys, but in the United States, a financial advisor is not legally obligated to advise you based on what is profitable for you. How screwed up is that, guys? How screwed up is that? But because Eric is such a man of, integrity, he wanted to be certified this way. So he is one of really a ridiculously small amount of financial advisors that are committed to the client's well-being over their own. So if you want more information about him, just send me a DM. So at the end of the day, though, you got to realize that a lot of these lottery winners and even superstars and rock stars and football players, part of the challenge is that they are being advised poorly. But also, and this I learned from D. Harv Ecker's work, he said each of us has, just like Jared is saying the same thing, a temperature set point, which is our relationship to money. It's kind of locked in on it. He spoke specifically to trauma as kids. Like if you had parents who were CFs, you likely will turn to a high roller. And if you were raised by high roller parents, you likely will respond by being a CF. So part of what Eckhart is saying is that if we have a temperature set point, just like a boiler of 69 degrees, anytime the temperature goes above that or goes below it, there's going to be a pilot light that gets lit, and the heat's going to start to get us back to what that temperature set is, or the air conditioner is going to come on, right? And that is going to get you. And that's why lottery winners and these sports guys and rock stars have a tendency to blow it up, because what they're doing unconsciously is getting themselves back to the set point they're used to. That's where their comfort level is. And until you do deep work around your unconscious biases to being at a CF or a high roller, it's invisibly going to drive you guys. I can't tell you how much work I've had to do and still have to do on my relationship to money because of the unusual childhood I had. I think I've shared with you guys that my mother, we were homeless for a long period of time, and that I also was going on weekends with my dad to like the opera and Broadway shows and Tiffany's. So I lived these unbelievable extremes. I remember I qualified for a free lunch at high school, and I had a pair of $150 velvet Calvin Klein jeans. And I'll never forget the day the lunch lady looked at my card, looked at my pants, and was like, what the fuck? Like, she was like, what is going on here? And I realized in that moment, oh my God, the day I'm trying to get my free lunch, I better not wear those really expensive jeans I got at my dad's house, because that was the incongruency of what I was growing up with. But we all have these incongruencies. And that's what I want you guys to really take a strong look at. So, all right. Gayasi, I hope I'm saying your name right. It was so good to see you here. I'm so glad you were here. Thank you, Jasmine. You're so sweet. It's been a hell of a ride. And this is why I coach guys and why I do this work, because I've got a lot of tools and I had to pay a big price for some of the crazy ride that I've had. So now that price has been paid, I'm like, well, look, I got the tools. Let me share them with as many people as possible. Well, you're incredible too, Jasmine. You're incredible too. Thank you. You're very sweet to say that. So what I'm saying is, if you identify with any of these qualities, I don't even care if you label yourself a CF or if you label yourself a high roller. What I care about, or anything in between, what I care about is that you start to get conscious of what your relationship to spending is, what your relation, because all of this is informing your trading, guys, how you trade, the kind of trader you are, the kinds of moves you make, the way you navigate your trading account, the way you navigate your jobs. That was another thing that was very powerful about that conversation. He talked about how often what happens is that people don't realize they're in control to how much money they make. He said, if you are wanting to make money, then you have to realize you just sometimes have to change jobs. You have to ask for a raise. You have to like have a side hustle. Like he said, it's not about cutting back, it's about making more money. Like he said, a lot of people don't even consider, wow, maybe I should just come up with a way to make more money. And he said, how crazy is that we don't even think of that as a potential alternative route? Instead of cutting coupons, why don't you just make more money? Think about how you could do that. That I really liked a lot. The other thing that he said was about being in places where you can make more money. And then he talks about how he had this opportunity in the book. He talks about this, where he was trying to get a job as on the trading floor, and he was like looking at going into finance because he was realizing he wanted to make more money. So he went down, met this guy. Doesn't sound like he was really a big match, but afterwards he asked the guy, hey, is it okay if I stay on the floor? I don't know if this is Chicago, I think it was a Pacific stock exchange. I think it was West Coast. Is it okay if I stay on the floor, pat and walk around and just kind of like take it in? And the guy was like, yeah, no problem. So he hung out there for a period of time after this interview. And in that interim, he accidentally almost got hit in the head with a water bottle. Some guy was tossing into the garbage and missed. And some guy started talking to him. Long story short, that guy hooked him up with a job. So he said, like, my just being down there opened up an opportunity, and he wound up making, I think that got him at Lehman Brothers back in the day. So he went from like 65,000 to like, ultimately a 400,000 a year position. He said, you're not going to get lucky sitting in your apartment. You're not going to get lucky never looking for other opportunities. You're not going to get lucky unless you take massive action. And that's something I'm a huge proponent of. A lot of people come to coaching and they want to do the work on themselves. They want to do the deep work, which, obviously I'm a fan of. But then guess what, folks? If you do all that work on yourself and you don't take massive action, it's like a waste of time and money. You got to take massive action. Action, action, action. It's so critical. And that's where a lot of us stop. We stop ourselves because we figure, well, what's going to happen? Like, it's going to happen out there. It's not going to happen in your four walls. So keep that always in mind. All right, I'm going to pause and I'm going to see if anybody has any questions. This has been a long day for me, so I probably won't stay the full hour today, guys, just because I'm a little exhausted. But if anybody has any specific question, please let me know. Anybody? All right, so trying to think what else was of critical importance. Oh, I know. I want you guys to take from that conversation today. I have to go get this quickly. Where did I put it? If you guys haven't done this already, I want you guys to consider it. I want to find it here. Hold on. I have it in my Discord room. And let me say this, guys. This is my last call. If you guys want to be part of my small group trading group, it starts tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, $1,800 for 6 weeks. I'd love to have you guys be a part of it. It's going to be a hell of a ride, and I think you guys will get so much out of it. I'm going to just advocate that you consider it and treat yourself, invest in yourself, and that means doing that kind of work. All right, let's see here. OSB says, I started to read How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven. I'm so glad. That's an excellent book. Good job, OSB. Good. Oh, thank you, Arpul. I appreciate you. That's awesome. All right, so let me shrink this down. Here's the assessment that I want you guys to do if you haven't done it already. Hold on. This is on a women's finance website. I don't know if it seems, but ignore the fact that it's on a woman's website. It's irrelevant. This is a personality. It's kind of like a money personality test. It's free. It's short, but I like it. The woman who created this, her name is Olivia Mellon. She wrote a book called moneyharmony.com, and it's a fantastic book, fantastic assessment. It just gives you a quick overview. It's not like the most deep of deep assessments out there, but it's going to give you a quick idea of what your relationship to money is, and at least it's a place to start. So I want you guys to do that for yourself, then come back and tell me what you got, because knowing yourself, understanding yourself is a big deal. This is what you guys have to know for you to be able to make any kind of change. All right. Also, I'm putting in the link to the acceleration group. Again, this starts tomorrow, and I would love to have you guys be a part of it if you feel it's, Shiv. Shane is saying hello to you. Okay. So, I'm excited to talk to you too, Osha. I'm really glad you're here. I'm really glad you're reading that book. And I am just excited for all of you and I really think No Worries is a book worth reading, guys. He goes into a lot of things. He goes into insurance. He goes into diversifying your investment accounts. He goes into, what else does he talk about? He talks at length about risk and our relationship to risk and how we have to be very crystal clear on how we infrequently measure risk, possibly, and that challenge we have around measuring risk. He talked actually about watching a movie. What was it called? About something about Polly, where what's his name? Plays kind of a risk, he's constantly measuring risk. And he said, it's really hard. We have a tendency, he used the example of like kids walking to school. Parents are afraid the kids will be picked up by somebody kidnapped, but yet they drive them to school. And he's like, the kids are more at risk of being harmed by a car accident because there's so many damn car accidents. That's right, Ben Stiller. He said that they are being kidnapped. He's like, so mankind, we have a tendency to overestimate risk where there really isn't any and underestimate risk where there is a lot. So yeah. Oh, you can ask any question you want where everybody's from, Steve G. That's fine with me. And you guys can answer as you want to. So anyway, part of what I feel is so good is that he is basically helping everybody see that some of the financial literature is setting everybody up for failure. And I think that is a really important point, because he said to live from austerity for a lifetime is really, really hard. And he doesn't think it's something we even need to do. And so I'll leave it at that. I'm from Brooklyn, by the way, and I'm in Hawaii now. So it's a great question, Steve. All right. Any questions? Anybody want coaching on anything? It's about 42 minutes in. Just curious if anybody wants to get any coaching before we close it up for the day. It's pouring raining here. It's been raining. And today, I don't know if you guys saw my tweet. I had like 3 umbrellas, all of them were in the car, and I needed them when I was leaving my house this morning. And I really was missing those New York City salesmen who are umbrella salesmen who just like come, I don't know, they come literally out of thin air with a huge box of umbrellas that suddenly go from $3 when it's not raining to $5 whenever it was raining in New York City. Steve G, I committed to shutting down after making my percentages. I like that, Steve G. Good job. Eric's in Buffalo. Tina's in Michigan. Steve G is close to Toronto. It's good to have such a diverse group of people here. I love it. It's fantastic. All right. That is going to be a wrap, guy. Jasmine is in Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Is that a rule that applies to those who live there, Jasmine, or only to those who visit? Huh? I'm curious. I'm sure it's a rule, a statewide rule, if you guys are smart. All right, so if I don't have any questions, I'm curious to see how you all do. I think just to those who visit, oh, that's too bad, Jasmine. It would be fun if that was, your rule all the time. You guys could be like the wild child of the country. I have a feeling you probably are the wild child anyway, Jasmine. I hope so anyway. A girl can dream, right? My favorite book. Yeah, you should start living like that. Why not, Jasmine? You got only one life. One of my favorite childhood books actually was Eloise. She was a little girl who lived at the plaza, and she just was a wild child, and she just caused so much trouble. And it's just such a fun book. And I was such a good girl, but I lived vicariously through Eloise and all of the trouble that she got into and all the trouble she caused. It's one of my favorite childhood books. And I have two copies, actually. I can't remember the author's first name, but the person who did the illustrations many years later, I got the chance to meet the illustrator. It's, a children's illustrated book, and he signed my copy. So it's really nice to have. I have that copy too. And there's a beauty in the Plaza Hotel in the lobby. There's actually a huge oil painting of Eloise, the character, because, it's a famous character that lived at the plaza. So everybody that stays at the plaza knows who Eloise, that character is. And a lot of little girls want to go there for tea because they want to meet Eloise. It's like that for the past, I don't know, 50 years or 70 years. The book came out probably in the 50s or 40s, something like that. All right, guys, I'm going to say aloha again. I hope you'll consider my small group coaching starting tomorrow night. And if you have any questions, certainly hit me up. Also, don't forget, I have a Discord room called Trader Hero Journey, and that we do weekly coaching, group coaching in there too. So that's it, guys. Great to see everybody here today. Thanks to so many of you who came to the Twitter space today. That was a lot of fun. I really liked him a lot. And hopefully we'll all see each other very, very soon.